Lewis Hamilton grasped his chance, as he always does, with both hands at Suzuka. He had done all the preparation, putting his Mercedes on pole, and with Sebastian Vettel out on lap 4, he converted it to maximize the damage. The championship is within his grasp, but for neutrals this outcome feels like a shame, after a season that had promised to go to the last race. However, Ferrari's team principal, Maurizio Arrivabene, is not giving up. "We will fight until the last race. The last lap. The last turn," he said. But in truth, short of a Tour's failure for Hamilton, his fourth title is all but in the bag. The promise for 2018, however, looks better than ever. Ferrari appear to have the quicker car and now must make it reliable. Red Bull are almost on a par in race pace and a three-way fight is on. Perhaps next year it will go to the last bend. End of an era. Renault finally ended Jolyon Palmer's stint in F1 after qualifying, announcing he would be replaced by Carlos Sainz after this race. It was going to happen for 2018, but they accelerated the process and with it ended a long-standing feature of modern F1. Since 1980, when John Watson shared the grid with a selection of other Brits, there have been at least 2 British drivers competing in Formula One every season. With one exception, in 2005 when Barr were banned from Spain and Monaco after their hidden fuel compartment was discovered, and Jenson Button's absence left David Coulthard as the sole British driver. But outside that, the country has been well represented. The list includes Nigel Mansell, Derek Warwick, Eddie Irvine, Martin Brundle, Mark Blundell, Damon Hill, Coulthard, Johnny Herbert and Button, among others. Hamilton now stands alone and will not be joined anytime soon. McLaren's exciting young talent Lando Norris is the only current serious British contender but is unlikely to be moved into the F1 team for 2 to 3 years. Should Hamilton choose to call it a day at the end of 2018, the grid would be entirely bereft of British representation. Force India's Catch-22. It was another strong weekend for Force India as they proved to be the best of the rest by some distance. Esteban Ocon was running as high as third at one point before he and his teammate, Sergio Perez, finished in 6th and 7th respectively. The team are the 4th best squad and have no intention of relinquishing the position. "Third place should be the target," Perez said in Suzuka. "At very least we should be in 4th for 2 consecutive years, but we want to aim for 3rd. Perez is refreshingly honest, with enough experience to be unafraid to speak his mind. The problem was, as has been repeatedly identified, that without redistribution of revenues, his team have no chance of competing at the front. His was only the latest voice in what is becoming a clamor that F1's owners cannot ignore. The difference in budgets, that is the problem, he said. The sport cannot be called a sport the way it is run. It is simply not a sport. I don't think in any sport you can compete with such a difference. People are spending 4 times more. If F1 wants to become a fair sport, they have to address it." Bottas finds some form. Valtteri Bottas opened the weekend in Japan having to answer some tough questions. His early form, including 2 wins and 2 poles, had been highly encouraging and was key in Mercedes' decision to retain him for next season, but since the summer break he has been distinctly off the pace. While Hamilton went from strength to strength, the Finn was going backwards. He has not managed to qualify within half a second of his teammate in the second half of the season and has not matched him for race pace either. At Suzuka he at least partly addressed it. He was quickest in final practice, but an error exiting Spoon cost him when he hit the wall. A comeback in qualifying was needed and he delivered. He was 3/10 down on Hamilton in second, and crucially 0.15 second front of Vettel. The grid penalty ultimately cost him, and his alternate strategy did not pay off in taking the race to the Red Bulls. He has serious aspirations to be a world champion, but if they are to be taken seriously he must now show a real resurgence for the final 4 races. Liberty's new deal. Some disconnect, it seems, emerged from what F1's owner says it wants to do and how it goes about it. The Formula One group has stressed it is committed to increasing the audience for F1 in the US. But it announced before the Japanese Grand Prix it had done a new deal for US TV coverage, switching from NBC to ESPN. The deal was arranged by the commercial director Sean Bratches, who previously worked for ESPN. The rights are understood to have been given to the broadcaster, without charge, in return for the sports owner retaining the rights to sell streaming coverage itself in the US, a conflict of interest NBC deemed unacceptable. It is a good deal for ESPN, but is it the way to grow the sport? ESPN will broadcast all sessions, but nothing around them, shoulder content as it is known. Perhaps most crucially, it will take the world feed, F1's coverage, with a feed commentary or that of Sky, with no dedicated US commentators, analysts or drivers. NBC broadcasts between 200 and 300 hours a season. EPSN will, it is understood, air 125. None of which appears to be the best way of building a new audience.